Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. 12 volumes in the original set, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook at Amazon and Audible. And then for those of you who are new or old to the podcast, I've been putting together this past year a 7-book regional series covering North America. So there's a few of them that are complete. When I say complete, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, that's the Northeast, Southeast, Pacific Northwest. The Southwest is complete with the audiobook in for approval as we podcast tonight. And the Central United States is now available in paperback, ebook, and Kindle. So just stay abreast. I just give you the heads up as we move along what's going on. We are making tremendous progress. Now, these books are all compilations of the original 12, organized regionally for those of you who kind of want to hang on to what's going on in your neck of the woods, so to speak. And that was a request from many that I honored and put a lot of work into. So go out there, pick up a copy, show some support, and you'll make me happy, okay? There's a lot of time and effort gone into this. And now, let me introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. What's going on?
Not too much. I apologize for that lengthy introduction, but I know there's people out there that are wondering, and a lot of people probably don't give a rat's ass, but I want everybody to know where I'm at with this project, you know?
No, I think it's great, but if you went any longer, I might have fallen asleep.
Yeah, I mean, it's an involved thing, right? I mean, all of these different books and audiobooks. I mean, you got to be on the receiving end like I am to fully appreciate what the heck has gone into this.
I can't imagine. I know how hard it is just to do this podcast once a week.
I hear that, bro.
But we had some really cold weather here this weekend, Bill.
Yeah, and we've been getting chilled as well, Kev. So
Yeah.
I was telling Philip the other night that his weather, and it seems like your weather because he's in Kentucky, is only a couple of degrees off of me. And Philip has a theory. We've talked in length about weather patterns south to north. And I think that Philip has something rather intuitive about this, that it seems a lot of these patterns follow the mountain range coming north. It's like they get hung up and they're being guided, similar to like tornadoes following a river.
Oh, they definitely do. They follow the water and the mountains.
Right, the terrain, right? They get channeled by it. And so I've learned to rely on, that a lot of the stuff coming from the Southland channels its way up towards us. Now, whether or not that hits Long Island or the Northeast in general, I don't know, but it definitely moves in our direction.
Right. Now it's interesting, like here, not that we're doing a podcast on weather, but here everything moves, here in North Carolina where I am, folks, everything moves generally the big storms from southwest to northeast, which supports what you're saying, Bill. Mm-hmm. But once in a while we get something that's moving like from northwest to southeast, especially in the summertime, and those are the really scary storms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the tornado packing storms and stuff. When they're moving the other way, it's like, hold on. Somebody go get Toto.
Yeah, that violent weather is frightening to anybody.
It's unpredictable. And it just moves in the opposite direction sometimes, or nearly the opposite direction.
Kev, you know, I'm sure you've given thought to it, and I'm sure many of our listeners have, as have I. What do you think the effect of things is on wildlife, and in particular perhaps the Bigfoot, when these things are going down? Because if you recall, we had that radio broadcast out of Australia, and they had a little Bigfoot show going on. And when that huge fire occurred, right, their show ended because the reports ended.
Yeah,
and that rang true to me. That no more reports from the area. The area was burnt out, and unless something else happens, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you burn the forest down in its entirety, and that's the habitat for the animals, well, it's not a happy ending.
Right.
I mean, I think, in terms of the weather, like the storms and stuff, I would say my guess would be the larger mammals and the smaller mammals, too, just hunker down until it goes through.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if animals really experience the same type of fear or trepidation that humans do. But
I think it's more instinctual. You know what I mean? Like, this is a problem. I gotta take some shelter here.
Yeah, like I've heard over in Japan, places like that, when there's a tremor that people don't feel, the animals have already scattered.
Oh, same is true here in the U.S.
Okay.
Animals, they can sense the earthquakes early on. Mm-hmm. They start behaving weirdly. And sometimes they say they can sense the big storms, too, because of change in pressure,
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not an expert on that.
No, and I myself behave weirdly when I realize I haven't gotten enough cereal left for tomorrow morning.
Weirder than normal, you mean?
Yeah, I mean extra weirdo.
Are you climbing the trees? Were you out back hunting squirrels? Because they're not as good as cereal.
And for my intrepid guitar-playing listeners, of which there seems to be quite a few, I am currently working on TNT and Money Talks.
Nice.
So, come on, love me for the money, bub.
Yeah. Maybe a little Problem Child next.
Yeah, Problem
My
Child.
theme song.
How about Night Stalker?
Oh, that's a good one, too.
That's freaking crazy. What a freaking set of lyrics these guys got, man.
They do.
So what do we have tonight, Kevin? Our Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities segment.
Well, we are going to the news this week, Bill, with an article or articles and newscasts that have been all over the wire for a couple of weeks now in the Northeast, in your backyard. Mm-hmm. So we're going to the news, and the news is going to take us to the sky.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we haven't talked about this, Bill, but a lot of this is going up in New Jersey and the New York metro area. Have you seen these articles on the news? And this one I'm going to talk about was in the New York Times a couple of days ago about unidentified drones that are lighting up New Jersey's skies, baffling residents and authorities.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned that, Kev, I knew where you were going. And folks, Kevin and I don't talk about, rarely, what he's going to talk about. But, the thing is, Kev, I know about drones this much, that there are legal restrictions via the FAA as to where and when drones can be flown. And I know there are warning devices inside of drones that you and I could buy where if you get too close to an airport or a restricted military area, it will turn around and come back to you.
100%. I have a Digi drone.
Okay.
And, when it's flying, like when I'm out at the coast, I live really close to some federally restricted land.
That's right.
and it's all hashed out, with red and white, and you can't fly over it. Like the drone won't go over it. I haven't tried, but they tell me it'll turn around. But the thing with these, Bill, these are huge drones.
Yeah, they're big.
They say they're as big as a car or bigger.
Yeah, and they're well lit. They're not disguised or cloaked out. Big, bright, flashing lights surrounding them, moving around seemingly at will. And numerous ones. Like you could stand and see 3 or 4 of them at a time, some closer and some more distant. They seem to be flying around the Piscataway military area and also conveniently over Trump's golf course.
Trump's golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey, and around Newark, too. Pretty close to Newark Airport.
Yeah. Now, I heard there's also been sightings in another state now.
Okay.
I didn't quite catch which one because I'm kind of on the go today.
Well, there was there's a photograph taken, which I'll put on our website, Bigfoot terrorinthewoods.com, and I'll put it under this episode, which is podcast 277. And there was a picture taken a few days ago in California in the daytime of this thing flying along, and it looks like a car.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
Really big.
So I don't know what's going on. Like, there's this article in the New York Times a few days ago. This woman, her name is Miss Dunbar, and she talks about the fact that she's been seeing them. The first one she saw, she says, early one night, several weeks ago, while driving home with the children, and she was stumped. She says, I was like, what is that? Is that a UFO? Said Miss Dunbar, a 37-year-old acupuncturist and mother of 3. And we watched it the whole way home. Then she said she thought nothing more about it until earlier this week, when similarly bright, large, and buzzing objects began flying low over her home in Bedminster, New Jersey. And she says her and her husband realized they were very large drones.
Yeah.
And they never see them during the day, only after darkness. And, I mean, there's hundreds of people that have seen them. There's lots of video of them. Lots of video has been on the Tri-State News about them, and the FBI is involved, asking people to come forward with their video. The FAA doesn't know anything about them. I don't know, Bill.
Yeah, well, I am not so certain that nobody knows anything about them. That's the public statement.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
But I don't think this is a military exercise.
Well,
because these things are all lit up like Christmas trees.
Yeah, and like nobody knows where they're from, right?
Right.
We was handed the same bill of goods when it came to the UFO phenomena. Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea. It's to me, it's all nonsense.
Yeah, but this feels different to me. This feels like I don't know what it feels like because they're so lit up.
Yeah.
And they're getting so many pictures of them where if this was a military thing, they don't need all those lights on them.
No. And I told you the one night I was on the beach surf fishing, and I heard the chopper coming down the Atlantic coast north to south. And I said to myself, this thing is getting almost on top of me. I could hear it, and you and I are accustomed to identification. I knew what I was hearing.
Right.
And 2 seconds after I had that thought, this freaking Cobra gunship went by me with a completely drab black fuselage, no markings, no lights illuminating the cockpit, and went ripping by me at about $1.50, 50 feet over my head.
Yeah, well, I've sent you the pictures of them. Of course, down here in North Carolina, this is where most of the military forces are. The mobile military forces. And I mean, we got the Cobras, we got the Apaches, we got the Osprey V-22s every day of the week flying over.
Yeah, so let's speculate a little bit. What, if anything, would be the purpose of giant drones suddenly being flown in numbers, very visible, no attempt to hide them whatsoever, over areas not only where they can be seen, but can be seen by numerous civilian and or, let's say professional entities.
There's another wrinkle that I want to put on this, and I don't understand why it's not mentioned in any of the newscasts or the news articles. But I had heard about this, Bill. I'm an aviation buff, right? Mm-hmm. I heard about it going back probably 2 months ago, that this company called Yowie, Joby, was starting to fly or test an electric air taxi in the skies above New York City and New Jersey.
Okay.
So this thing looks like a drone that seats, like 4 people, but it has 4 or 5 rotors on the top of it, and 3 wheels, so it can touch down, kind of like a helicopter. It's electric, and they've been flying it back and forth between the airports and New York City. And this is public knowledge, like you can Google this and see an article about it. But no one's tying this together with any of these drone sightings, which I don't understand.
Right.
I assume, and of course, they would have an FAA flight plan.
Right.
So if you called the FAA, they would know about these, and people are calling the FAA, and they're like, yeah, we got nothing.
Yeah, so if that was the case, if it was this outfit experimenting with these drone-type taxis, that would all be public knowledge, because there's not like 100 people.
It is public knowledge.
Yeah. It's not like there's 100 people out there doing this experiment. It's one company trying to get this project off the ground, which is commendable, but we'd know about it. It would be big news. People would be talking about it coming, and what do you think? And, this would be our nightly news until its completion,
Yeah.
And you probably have New York newscasters, getting in one with a camera crew and
absolutely. And by the way, this company is partnered with Delta Airlines.
Yeah, so
so Delta's invested a huge amount of money in them, because basically, you can fly one of these. The promise is from like New York City to JFK, where it might take an hour or 2 to get there by car.
Right.
And it can take 7 or 8 minutes.
Perfect.
And it's super quiet, right?
Right.
It's electric.
Right. And it wouldn't be hidden. It would not be hidden. I don't know, Kev. It's just very bizarre. But it's not unlike a lot of things in our lifetime that we see and hear about. There are just things going on that we chit-chat about. And frankly, the people that are doing them really don't care if we chit-chat about them or not.
I know. Folks, what I want to do, I want to put a call out to our listeners, like we often do. A lot of you are in the New York metropolitan area. One is, if you've seen them, tell us more about it. But also, if you got a theory on what's going on here, I'm all ears, because I can't figure this one out.
Yeah, well, we might have an insider listening to us that'll tip us.
That's right. You can do it anonymously.
Yep. BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com.
Contact us.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so it's very bizarre, Kev. I'm kind of glad you touched base about that, because a lot of people are wondering, and we are wondering as well, folks.
It keeps coming up in the news, Bill.
Yeah, it's nonstop. There's always a segment on it, even if it's a little blurb, another video.
Yeah, and it's not, what I think is cool is there's so much video of it.
Yeah.
It's not a Learjet flying over. It's not a Cessna flying over.
No.
These are, and it's not a helicopter either. It's a large drone.
Yeah, and there are definitely restrictions on anything that size, what it can do and where it can be done.
Absolutely.
Especially around the New York metro area. You got Newark, you got LaGuardia, you got JFK. Major hubs of transportation. You got all of the helicopters zipping around in the tri-state area. My God, it's like everywhere.
Yep.
So you can't just have stuff flying around all over the place. There was a cluster of them visible in one video I saw. It's hard to tell distances on a video, but I would say that the 4 that I saw in one video, there couldn't have been more than a mile between all of them if you went around.
Exactly. I saw the same video.
Yeah, they weren't some great distances apart,
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah, it is strange. Wow. So is that it?
That's it for cryptids in the news and other oddities.
Yeah, that's definitely an oddity. And folks, if you're new to the podcast, yeah, it's Bigfoot Terror in the Woods. But our segment, Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities, is just that. We're going to present anything we think is strange and unusual, whatever it may be. And tonight it was about these drones. So that's the way we roll, folks. And now I got a couple of really interesting... You know what? I think I'm going to lead into this account out of Australia, Kev.
Ooh.
Now...
Is it my favorite cryptid?
Oh, it is.
Yowie!
Yeah, it is definitely. Short and sweet, but listen to this. This was reported to me by a fellow named Rodney Piper, a resident of Australia. Now, Rodney and his crew regularly hunt for yowies. And on this outing, they struck what you may call pay dirt. This is what Rodney had to say. Just this past year, Bill, now this is a year old, so it's actually like 2 years ago. Just this past year, Bill, the boys and I were investigating an area in Queensland where we had some past experiences with the big fella. It was in the middle of the day, about 5 days after we had experienced a genuine gully washer of a storm that ran through the area, flooding and puddling it to the point of not allowing us to access it until it had dried up. It was the end of one of the rainy seasons in these parts. The wooded area that we were investigating was located near a sheep farm, where some activity had been reported in the past as well, sheep being taken reportedly by the Yowie, having been seen by the rancher himself. Much of the area was comprised of dried and cracked mud. This is after the rain, having been baked in the sun since the rains had subsided. And basically, this is the evidence which we found, which I think you will find rather incredible to say the least. We came upon a track line left by a Yowie in the mud, sometime after the rain had stopped. We know this because these tracks had been left during the rain. We would not have found them, the rains erasing them. As you have seen in the picture, these tracks were hard baked into the now dry mud. When we came upon them, the tracks were facing us. So we traced them back to their origin, wherever it would take us. Now, what we came upon was rather odd indeed. In front of us were laying two dead critters. One being a small lamb that seemed partially eaten and left, with no further predation having taken place, and the body of a 100-pound feral pig torn in two pieces. The tracks that we had followed were leading away from this scene, while others were leading up to it, and many other tracks surrounding the location of the animals. Very odd in that the lamb seemed to have been chewed upon, with nothing else having been touched since its demise. And the pig's body was torn asunder, not cut in any way. All the organs still intact and visible within the two halves. That's interesting. The pig also had not been picked upon by any other creatures, even though the body showed signs of being there for days. There was a bit of flesh in the pig's tusk and a few strands of dark brown fur attached to it. Certainly not a match for the lamb. Now, these pigs can and will attack and eat the sheep. Precisely what we believe happened at this spot. However, we are further convinced that the Yowie had snuck up on the pig after hearing it attack the lamb and turned the tables on it in what appeared to be a fit of rage, perhaps brought on by the taking of the lamb. The fact that neither animal was taken for food was also quite puzzling. Why not take the fresh lamb? Having killed the pig seemed reasonable at the time to us, but it had not done so, leaving us in a quandary. In these days and times, a knife is generally replaced with a saw when piecing up an animal such as a pig. But this animal had been torn in two, leaving two jagged edges behind on both the front and rear portions. I cannot express to you how much strength would be needed to perform such an act, which is immeasurable in human terms. Let us put it this way. No man could do it. If I am correct, this was the first time that we ever came upon something that I would refer to as being a vengeful killing. Perhaps the Yowie values the lambs so much that it was venting its anger upon the pig trying to infringe on its food supply. Who knows? Based on the piece of flesh and hair found on the tusk, the pig may have gored the Yowie beforehand, or perhaps during a brief struggle before being dispatched by the beast. What do you make of that, Kev?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Bill. I mean, initially you'd be kind of like, well, you don't know that it was a Yowie, right? Just because it had the fur on the tusk. But the fact that this large boar or pig was like torn in half, literally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, now it brings me back. Also, remember, these guys regularly investigate Yowie, and they said that this farmer's property, where the sheep were, had reported predation on his sheep and the presence of Yowie.
Yeah, a little bit of a Yowie hotbed.
Yeah, I mean, looking for taking advantage of a robust food supply, right?
Sure.
Easy picking. What's your sheep going to do to you?
Yeah.
They run away, it just stomps over there, grabs one, breaks its neck, and away we go. It reminds me of the report that Neil gave me down in Georgia about the hog hunters at night running across that Bigfoot that jumped the pig they had shot and ripped its head off in front of them. I mean, that's no easy task, man, like these guys said. To tear a pig?
No.
Holy smoke.
I can't imagine the force that's needed for that.
No, I mean, pig skin? Come on.
Can't even get a good grip on them.
Yeah, I mean, and what a waste of some good football material.
So I was going to say, it's not a pig skin like a football. It's a furry pig skin.
Yeah, that is amazing. Now, let me jump into this other.
All right, we got a twofer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. This came actually from the Blue Ridge Wilderness. And let me get into this with you. Tim O'Brien, a resident of Pottersville, New York, have reported this following sighting. And this sighting had actually occurred several years before. Well, I shouldn't even read that because we're not reading the previous sighting. There was another sighting in the Pepperbox Wilderness, and this Blue Ridge Wilderness sighting is very close to that. The two sightings were a couple of years apart. And this is what Tim had to say. In 2016, Bill, I was hiking one of my favorite nature trails in the northwest corner of the Blue Ridge Wilderness area. That's in upstate New York. This trail is between Raquette and Sagamore Lakes, a very woodsy area indeed. And I had hiked a dozen times or more in this area, and it was one which I was very familiar with. I'm a day hiker, which put quite simply is nothing more than this. I hike a certain distance on any given day until I can comfortably have enough stamina and daylight to get back out. I'm not looking to impress anybody with my abilities. I am out to enjoy the woods and exercise. So this was just another day in my routine Saturday in 2016. The day was gorgeous. I was not fond of foul or inclement weather when hiking, missing 3 toes on my right foot from birth, and wearing a custom-made boot and shoes for my entire life. I was approaching a curvature in the forest where the trail was narrowing just ahead of me when a skinny tree came snapping across my path. You will have to trust me in that there was no reason that this sapling would come down like a whip. It looked like a jockey's whip on a thoroughbred during a race. Naturally, I stopped to both look and listen, and I heard and saw nothing, so I stood my ground. Only those who have found themselves in strange situations can appreciate what I'm about to say. I was not prepared at all for what happened. Having never experienced anything such as this beforehand, catching me entirely off guard. If it was meant to shock me, it did, as I stood quietly and waited for what I did not know. Perhaps only 30 seconds later, I heard a series of whistles coming from 2, possibly 3 different locations, none of which sounded far away, and I said, "Hello." When I said hello, the whistles ended, or should I say no more whistling occurred after I said this. Then I began to feel the unnerving sensation that eyes were staring at me, having seen nothing. Beginning to feel very uncomfortable, I started to retreat on the trail as something or someone began to run through the woods on both sides of me quickly and noisily. Whatever they or it was sounded heavy on the forest floor, not trying to be stealthy at all when moving. Both, if not more than 2, sounded like they were darting ahead of me and stopping suddenly, now silent in the trees. I knew of no critters that behaved this way in the region, thinking it was some wacky teenagers playing a goof on me or worse. So I kept moving, having no protection other than a 4-foot-long walking stick that I used regularly. I thought I might be in the clear as the minutes rolled by. Nothing else had occurred for, as I say, about 15 minutes or so, when the whooping sounds began. I had heard nothing moving about in the trees for, as I say, about 15 minutes, when what sounded like a war party erupted around me. A combination now of these whoops and whistles. Some of the whistles sounding like that of a human, while others were more like an off-key kind of screech, something that is very hard for me to describe in words. While this was happening, I thought I would lose my mind. You cannot even begin to conceive what this was like for me, and it got worse. Just ahead of where I was, perhaps less than 50 feet, I saw this large creature step across the trail from my right-hand side to the left, taking one giant leap to cross what was about a 6-foot-wide gap, and it was gone. Now, I have noises coming from both sides of me. And now, a Bigfoot, or what I believed was a Bigfoot, had just crossed the trail ahead. And I am now thinking I'm a dead man, like a mouse being toyed with by a cat before the final bite takes its life. If you will, I was trapped, hemmed in, and that is when I heard the howl. This howl came from far away, but it bellowed throughout the forest, unmistakable to the ears, loud and resonant. Following which I heard whatever was around me scatter. And that's when I ran. When I say run, in my terms it was not a run. But it was a run, but not as a healthy man or woman would, missing 3 toes and having these modified boots. I still have a little trouble running, as you would call it, but I was going as fast as I could and frightened half to death. At some point, I had stopped. My lame foot was so sore at that point that I was limping and in pain, having irritated myself with the whole ordeal. After the fact, I wondered if these were young ones, and if perhaps Mama Bigfoot had called them back with the howl. It also reminded me of a video I had seen out of Africa, where a young cheetah was toying with a small gazelle, having not killed it right off the bat, but rather playing with it for about 20 minutes, allowing it to think it could get away, and then jumping on it, knocking it to the ground again and again. Perhaps they were toying with the disabled human, having other plans in mind for me when they had finished their fun and games. The Bigfoot that had crossed the trail was about 7 feet tall and somewhat slender compared to the other descriptions I have heard of them. Excuse me. At the time, I thought they were real but could not entirely accept it. But after that experience, everything changed. When it crossed the trail, the legs were capable of an extensive split, and they were extended virtually straight in the middle of the step. I don't know, he's talking about a leap and a step, but he's talking about a very wide leg placement front to rear. He says, just like a gymnast going into a split. Very odd looking, but I remember it. How could you ever forget it? However, when I say slender, please do not mistake me. This creature was all business regarding being a muscular animal, having thick and tawny legs and arms. I believe capable of bullying anything it wanted to. Of that, I am fairly sure. There you have it, Kev.
Wow. That's wild.
Can you imagine being hemmed in by this type of activity, walking alone in the woods somewhere?
No. That's why you don't want to be there by yourself, right? You got to be out there with a partner.
Yeah.
A buddy.
Yeah, even if you get hurt, who's going to help you out?
That's it, exactly. I mean, a lot of these places, there's no cell coverage either, you know?
No, you're dead. And if the weather turns foul, you could suffer from hypothermia, die, anything, heart attack,
When
whatever.
the weather turns foul.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just like we were talking about at the beginning of this.
You know, the pastor of my church, Father Ryan, he's a big walker and a big hiker. He actually got caught and had to spend a night on the Appalachian Trail upstate.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking about it one day. He got turned around. Some weather came in over him, blocking the sun out. He thought he was following a trail. And then he realized, like, I'm wandering this way. And he's a fast walker.
Oh, I know. I've seen him walking.
Yeah, so he goes this way, he goes that way, he goes, next thing you know, he's like, man, it's getting dark. I better figure out what I'm going to do overnight because I am not getting out of here in the dark.
Right.
And he spent the whole night with relatively nothing to sustain him and was able to get back the following morning.
Wow.
Yeah, so it happens.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yep, so interesting, huh? And that's it, 2 crazy accounts. Torn up Bigfoot and a sheep partially eaten in the Queensland area of Australia. And then we go up into the wilderness, upstate New York, Blue Ridge Wilderness.
Yeah, I've never been up there that I know of.
Yeah, Pepper Box Wilderness, Blue Ridge Wilderness. There's a lot of space up there, man.
Yeah.
Once again, bringing us back to the fact that there's 9.5 million square miles in North America. There's a lot of space out there, folks, for things to live and thrive. You know, listen, man. I just look at the photographs that was sent to me of the Olympic National Forest, and all I have is a snapshot from one vantage point to the other. It looks like an endless space. And that's just one little section of, you know, wilderness in the United States. And you look at that picture and you say, man, if you go in there, it would be real easy to get lost.
Yeah.
And certainly anything would be well able to hide from you and or get the jump on you wandering around in there if you were hiking around. There's no doubt about it. You know.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, Kev. I think people get caught up in not rural, but suburban America, city and or town setups, open farmlands. They get lost in the fact that just how much wilderness is out there that
I agree.
You may have never seen, you may never go into, but that does not mean there are not other things living in there that you know nothing about.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
Amazing, man. So, what do we have, brother?
Super cool. Well, we got some good emails this week, Bill.
Cool.
First one comes in from David.
Okay.
And David writes, "Hi, WJ and KJ. I have to say thanks, guys. I've thoroughly enjoyed the latest shows. I can't wait for more shenanigans from the Sheehan brothers. Please keep up your highly entertaining shows." And he talks about the fact that he's discovered a website called Cryptid Wiki, which I know as well, David, so that's cool. And he says, "It's proved to be a fountain of information for me. It could probably help you with subjects for cryptids in the news and other oddities. I previously informed you that the Japanese wild man is called a hibagon. It's variously named after the area it's found in with the suffix gon at the end. So a hibagon is a wild man from the Hiba Mountain. One found near Yamano was dubbed Yamagon, sorry, not Yamama. Yamagon, and so on. It's notable that there are wild monkeys in Japan called the Japanese macaque. These tailless monkeys are considerably smaller than the hairy man in stature. These are also incredibly similar to the monkeys found on Gibraltar, which is around 8,000 miles from Japan. Since my Japanese friend told me about the hibagon, I've thrown myself into learning about cryptids and legendary Japanese creatures from myth and folklore. The most horrifying story I've looked at so far was the Senkabetsu bear incident, which is an actual true story. Bob Gimlin on YouTube has an incredible recounting on his channel. So Japan is proving to be a fascinating country to research for numerous reasons. Take good care of yourselves, guys. David, sorry.
Interesting, Kev?
Yeah. I put the hibagon on my list. And maybe the Yamagon, too.
And maybe, what was the other one? Your mama?
Maybe the Senkabetsu bear incident. Easy for me to say.
And who was he to call us purveyors of shenanigans?
Yeah, well, you know. If the shenanigans fit.
Yes, I'll have you know I'm not involved in any shenanigans and I don't know anything about them, see? Furthermore, I don't know anything about any murder, copper. Who said anything about murder?
All right, you're going to like to lead into our next email, Bill.
I'll tell you if I like it or not.
Yeah. From Gilbert. Holy Yeti, Batman. I found these abominable snowman boxers on eBay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, check them out. With a Yeti carrying a strand of lit Christmas lights, and I immediately thought of you wise guys. You should get a pair for yourself and surprise your brother with a pair for Christmas. I really enjoy the show with you two having fun together. God bless the two Oyaz. Spelled DATWOOYAZ.
Yes.
He says, I love your accent. To hell with anyone that doesn't like your accent. And to hell with all those little black-eyed bastages, too. Gilbert in Texas. Come on, Gilbert. We just want to borrow your telephone.
That's right, Gilbert.
Gilbert, I really like the Ring cameras you've put in.
Yeah.
Perhaps you don't realize that I can see you sitting in your kitchen ignoring us. Just come to the door and let us in. We just want to use your phone.
Yeah, and we'd like to have some of those flapjacks you're cooking.
We're not going to hurt anyone, of course.
Well, Not many people, anyway.
You just need your phone. Great letter, Gilbert.
Fantastic.
And I love the reference to the black-eyed bastages.
What a character, man. We've got some clan of characters listening in, Kevin.
We got some great listeners, Bill, and we love it when they write in and share the ideas with us. And folks, we also love it when you give us those 5-star reviews, and we love those detailed five-star reviews too.
Yes.
You know, those reviews are really the only way we have to attract new listeners to the podcast. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, folks.
Yeah, and Kev, I guess we'll be doing our Christmas podcast soon, right?
It's coming up. I was thinking about that.
Coming up.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah.
Maybe a little Krampus visit.
Oh.
And a reading of the Bigfoot 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, of course.
A Krampus Christmas. You know, I was shown some pictures of Krampus parade to some of my coworkers the other day. They were like, "What's Krampus?" Do you know there was an upheaval? They were apparently, I think it was in Tennessee. They were trying to institute a Krampus parade, and the people were up in arms. About, you know, some people were like, "No way, it's demonic. We don't want it."
That's reasonable.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the costume, totally evil. You know what they look like.
Oh, my God. The goat horns and fangs.
Yeah, blood and everything else.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's totally reasonable to say, like, hey, no Krampus parade here.
And here they were walking along with a huge, you know, kerosene torch on the end of a pole at night.
Perfect.
You know, it looked like the people chasing Frankenstein to the castle. You know. Oh my! Well, is that it, brother?
That's it. So I take it you haven't put up your giant Krampus yet on the front lawn.
No, I do have my giant Bigfoot out there, though.
Well, that's okay.
And you know, Dave told me on Google Earth now he could zoom in on the yard and actually see the Bigfoot. Yeah, that's freaking great, man.
Awesome.
Listen, and by the way, if anybody thinks they're going to come visit me, you're going to leave with more lead in your butt than you came with.
Even if we just want to use your phone?
Yes, especially if you want to use my phone. Come on in.
All right, Bill, good podcast.
Yeah, excellent, Kev. And by the way, folks, if you should find yourself wandering the woods of Queensland, or perhaps upstate New York, or anywhere else for that matter, you best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.